All right, Ohio political news coming at you live in person. As always, good to see everybody out there tonight. Salute. Okay, tonight we're going to be diving in. I want to dive into this whole thing with Charlie Kirk. I mean, it still hasn't sunk into me mentally yet. Everything that transpired there, and there's new developing stories coming up all the time. But it is one of the saddest cases that we've had in American history in a long time, and he cannot be replaced. There is no way, and nobody had a greater influence on Generation Z than Charlie Kirk. Nobody. And again, like I said, he cannot be replaced on that. But there's just so many different twists and angles that are coming on. We're going to dive into some of that, but I wanted to show you one quick example. Is this right here? This is this guy right here that's being carted off by the police there. He wears the exact same shirt, you'll notice, that the shooter on the right. You can see the shooter has that American flag, and he's got that eagle shirt. And this kid here that the cop is hauling away, he demolished a memorial for Charlie Kirk. So they had gone to great painstaking effort, the people in that area, to put up a nice memorial, and he came over and purposely demolished it. But what's really bizarre is, okay, you notice the shirt the killer is wearing, and this kid, if I back it up, is wearing the exact same shirt. Look at that. I don't know. That is just another twist in the plot. I don't know what's going through people's minds these days. You have so many people that are actually applauding, the leftists, the woke community applauding what took place with Charlie Kirk being assassinated like that. But it's a sad thing. And I do want to say one more thing, and that is this. When I was on the Gateway Pundit looking at some stuff, there is a lot of information out there right now that there are these radical pro-trans online groups that have been predicting something like this. It's really nefarious that they've been predicting some of these online chats, like from just a couple days before Charlie was assassinated. They're saying something big, is going to be happening on September 10th. Something big is coming down. Keep an eye out. And it's all these like trans groups, these small trans groups. So that has to be investigated too, because that's a new twist in the whole development. And there's one other thing I want to throw out too, just for some food for thought, is I don't know if we've got the whole story. I'm just going to come out right now and say that I don't know if we got the whole story, because especially with the murder weapon, I find it very unusual that when we see the video of the kid dropping, the shooter, he drops from the second or third story of the school building, and then he takes off. He doesn't have a rifle with him, and he couldn't have put it in the backpack that quickly. And that kind of a gun that he has doesn't really disassemble into a backpack. And then they find it, if he did disassemble it, then they find it completely assembled later, stashed somewhere in a yard. I think, I could be off in left field, but I think that there's a lot more that we need to look into with this whole thing. And also I want to ask everybody, if you're out there, feel free to please chat with the conversation on this, because we'd love to hear what you have to say. And also please subscribe. So if you're on YouTube, I need you to subscribe on YouTube. It's very easy, but it's so important if we're going to start building this audience out, which I want to do. And if you're on Rumble, do the same thing. Subscribe. All right, let's find out real quick here who we've got out there. Brian is with us here tonight. Good to see you, Brian.
Hello to everyone.
Jonathan is with us here tonight.
Hey, everybody.
Good to see you. And we got Timothy Shea from the MAGA Institute joining us here tonight as well. Good to see all of you guys. All right, I'm going to just throw it out there. First off, maybe I'll start with Timothy. Maybe I'll start with you here real quick. A lot of twists and turns in this whole plot with Charlie Kirk. You agree with that?
Joe, I think your instincts are spot on. We don't know the full story. I think this week we will. I'm told FBI is working on those angles you talked about, the Discord, the group of transgender dysmorphics it's amazing how quickly the left came out and with the gaslighting, saying, "Oh, okay, no, he was a Republican, he was a Trump supporter, he was a registered Republican, and okay, his trans girlfriend." It's like, and I just put asterisk, trans GF, right. I put asterisk BF.
Wait a minute, stop right there 1 second. Just stop right there with that thought, because that's another twist in this whole plot that is so bizarre. So he was living with another guy, 22 years old as well, who was transitioning into being a female.
No, he was transitioning into being a mutilated male.
Yeah. Well, by their definition, a female. But that is so bizarre, right? Okay, go ahead. Didn't mean to cut you.
Yeah, so in a little bit of filigree on your first story, our state chair in Arizona had placed flowers at that memorial. So that attack today cuts particularly close to the bone. And I am long on record as saying that we need to eliminate all hate crime legislation, right? The status of the victim, the gender, race, sexual orientation, whatever flavor you want to look at, of the victim should have no bearing on the sentence imposed. There's no such thing as a kind, gentle, loving rape, violent assault, or murder. Okay, so I want to get it clear. I'm against all hate crime legislation. However, if we're going to have hate crime legislation, I think it applies to Charlie's assassination. I think it applies to what that young man did down on Beverly Road in southeastern Phoenix. And that's the wonderful thing we've seen this week. We've seen the jujitsu reversal. Okay, I can't say more than I can say, but let me just tell you that there are some very, very good patriotic people that have already gotten thousands fired. And you can go to GoFundMe and look at all the GoFundMes for all the people that have gotten fired.
Yeah, you're right.
And there's a database now of over 20,000 names. It's going to be over 50,000 soon. And tomorrow, when bosses get into work and check their work emails, we're going to see an awful lot more firings. We're going to see more courts martial in the military. We've had enough. The tables have turned, and it's now for them to experience accountability, consequences, and justice.
No, you're absolutely right. So this is, we were just talking about this kid that was trespassing and mutilating this. Here it is. Well, it's on Fox News. Watch this. Okay, so he is, they set up a nice memorial and everything. He's just going to go, enough is enough. And they weren't going to put up with that. Like some onlooker grabbed him around the neck and started squeezing it, which is what I would have did right then and there. I'd have grabbed his shirt and just, pounded him a little bit. We've had enough, okay? There's absolutely enough is enough.
Well, we saw that at an AMC movie theater, okay? This guy unzips his fly and starts urinating on a child. And immediately about 5 or 6 guys just start wailing on him. And I'm not advocating violence, but, Club Found Out got a lot of new members this week, Joe.
I want to point one other thing real quick here on Charlie.
Want to live in a country where if a woman does not want to go to work having to have a kid, she does not have to go to work and she could stay at home and raise those kids. It is.
Now, some of this stuff that he is saying is not controversial. And if you go back a few generations, as he's going to say right here, that's exactly what was going on.
We should all seek to build that country. It's good for men. It's good for women. It's good for kids, good for family, good for community. It's not knocking people that use daycare at all. If you have to use daycare, God bless you. I know it's tough. But honestly, too many people have to. In 1980s, a father working was able to support an entire family.
Now that is true. You go back to the 70s, the 60s, the 70s, especially in the 60s, women really didn't work. I mean, and that's just such a concept of the mind that we can't even comprehend now. But it was the dad, he worked, he had 5, 6 kids, and they had middle-class income. And that is not the case
So expensive.
Today.
Homes are out of reach. Inflation has crushed us. Both the man and the woman have to go into the workforce. That is bad. It is bad for everybody. It creates strangers raising our kids. It creates women that have to go into the workforce that are unhappy in their job because they'd rather have their 6-month-old baby in their arms. And honestly, it's much more important for you to raise your 6-month-old baby than crunching numbers on a spreadsheet for some company that doesn't even know your name.
Right, exactly. So what are you saying there? And this is what gets him shot, right? This is what kind of assassinates and gets him. People get riled up about this stuff, Brian. It's just crazy. I just want to get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really, really sad. But Charlie was right. It's the destruction of the family that's been a planned event, as far as I'm concerned, and the family was the foundation of our country, and it really has been destroyed, and we really want it back. This whole American dream has been shattered, and we want to get it back for future generations. We lived a great life in my generation, but the future generations are going to have to scramble, and that's just not fair to them. And I love the fact that, as I've heard, this is truly a turning point in our country, and we need to make sure that, and we will make sure Charlie did not die in vain, and we will continue. And it's good to hear that its Turning Point organization is going to get even stronger. I understand there's been a tremendous upsurge in young people wanting to join Turning Point and start their own chapters. So that's a very good sign. We need a revival in the country.
Yeah, it's interesting that, and I agree with you, we need a revival, but it's also interesting that, ironically, this might force the revival to happen even quicker through his assassination. There are so many groups, like you said, it's just like thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of groups that want to now become part of Turning Point USA and do something on his behalf. So, what do you think, Jonathan?
Yep. So I'm looking at a message that went out from Matt at TPUSA. The message reads as follows: we have 18,000 new chapter requests since Erica spoke.
Wow.
Pardon me. We have 18,000 new chapter requests since Erica spoke. We had 9,000 college chapters and 1,100 high school chapters prior to this. This is the turning point. That's the message that went out from Matt at Turning Point USA. 18,000, where before they had a little over 10,000 total. So, and that's just extraordinary. A couple of thoughts. One is there's a video that I watched a few days ago that talks about the methodology that goes into creating a divided, separated society, because we've seen it happen before. Countries have done it to other countries in the past, where you go in, you create civil unrest and pit people against each other. And one of the first things you have to do is dehumanize a category of people. You can pick whichever, it's either those rich people or the black or white, or it doesn't matter. If you divide and your objective is to install whatever you want to call it, I call it all social communism, because they've sort of, as far as branding, they've blended the two. But the mission is to get people fighting. And clearly we have that. Textbook. Everything that's happening here to divide America is textbook. But there's an element of it, as I study up on history. I have fairly recently in life made myself kind of a history buff, and I read up on common similar circumstances. Here's something, this is a little breadcrumb for our audience here. We all know about what's happened in Venezuela. Venezuela was systematically tanked. We went from a very prosperous, very wonderful nation and was destroyed almost overnight. But one of the elements that not everybody's aware of is the militarization of violent young children. And now there are these roving gangs all over Venezuela of these militant children who beat and stomp anybody who resists the prevailing narrative. Doesn't that sound familiar? We have the same thing playing out here in the United States with militarized children. By the way, a little side note to our tech crew in the background, that means you, Kent. I'm looking at Rumble, and it looks like that's not up. Typically, I have Rumble going in the background on one of my devices, just so I can sort of help to monitor the chat room. Kent, if you wouldn't mind taking a look at that. But finishing out my point, there's nothing new under the sun. The things that we're seeing happen to and throughout the United States and the West right now, you can see examples of virtually the same thing. And in the case of the militarized, violent, extremist youth, that's playing out presently in Venezuela. We need to know more about these things and stop treating this as if it's some sort of unique new phenomenon. It isn't.
I got you. All right, very good, very good. I was just in the pulling up Rumble as well, right there. I think we might be on Rumble, but I could be wrong. Anyhow, we'll find out from.
Yeah, we're on.
Are we're kicking okay on Rumble? All right, very good. All right, so this whole Charlie Kirk thing is taking a lot of twists and bends, and Timothy, I want to get you back on here for a minute because I know you've been following it really close and stuff. So there's a lot of twists and bends and turns, and what are some of the new developments that you're aware of that maybe we're not?
Well, you already covered the Discord chat group. The rifle, how did he get it? Who inscribed those sayings on the, the transgender and the furry and the Antifa slogans that were engraved onto the brass of those rounds? There's a lot of garbage out there. People saying that, no, he was shot with a 45 from the right-hand side. You can see a guy's arm come up. No, there was only one rifle report. There was only one gunshot. They definitely have the guy that shot the shot, and we know exactly how Charlie died, ironically, because he had a vest on. If he didn't have a vest on, he'd have a very serious upper chest and right shoulder wound, but he'd be alive because what happened is it hit the right side of the vest and ricocheted across and just dissected the left side of his neck, the carotid and the jugular.
That's so ironic.
An irony.
Too.
Another piece of irony is
irony. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and another irony is that he was just talking to a question about transgender violence when he was shot. So,
what about all the reports that, like the Gateway Pundit and stuff has been putting out, that all of these trans groups, at least 6 of them, were talking about Charlie's death, and some of them were saying it's going to, September 10th. Watch out, September 10th. And there's even a song that they had a song somebody wrote that Charlie Kirk would be dead at the age of 31. So all this, it seems like there's more than just one guy involved, right? Doesn't seem like there's, or is that getting off into
a lot of that is ex post facto AI type stuff, but some of it's real, and that's why I said FBI is going to have more information for us this week.
Yeah, you really can't go off too far into the limb, but to find that stuff. And a lot of them saying that specifically, September 10th and all that this was going to happen.
Well, that's what they're looking into.
Yeah, it's very disturbing and stuff. But what a great American Charlie Kirk was. And, he inspired so many people.
Timothy, I have a question because there's a lot of talk on the security behind him with the hand gestures and the hat on, tapping the hat. What do you think about that kind of stuff? I mean, I can't imagine they've probably FBI has already talked to them.
My partner in MAGA Institute, Brooke McGowan, was also with 13 Million Bikers, which actually inspired Charlie to start Turning Point USA, he told her. One of those 2 men was the head of her security team. So that's common for them to use, third base coach signals to security in the region, because remember, it's not just security on the stage. There are people out in the crowd to be able to immediately neutralize any threat and the guys with eyes on can signal to them that, there's this person over here acting weird or whatever. Those were completely innocuous and normal security protocol.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. And if you look at where the guy was positioned, way at the back of that tent, yeah, he was fooling with his hat a little bit, but no one else could see that. Certainly the sniper couldn't see anything up there. Some of that is just people do all kinds of weird gestures with their hands from time to time.
No. They were signals. But they were signals within the TPUSA security team.
Okay. Yeah, I got you there. So let me just follow up with this then, with the whole thing with Charlie Kirk now. Where do we go from here? Where does this go? Is this going to be a movement that's going to just take on a life of its own at this point, do you think? I think it is. I think it is because when someone gets assassinated like that, it wakes everybody up. It just wakes you up. It's like college football doesn't seem that important anymore. You really you hone in on what is really, really important. And I want to ask you a question here, Brian. Let me just ask you this, pop this off you real quick, because I went to church today, I went to Mass and all that. No word at all about Charlie Kirk. Did you hear anything from the pulpit about Charlie Kirk or anything? I don't think we would have, but I was just wondering if you did.
No, that would be probably too political, for the churches. They, as strange as that may sound, but I'm not really surprised. I do have a question for the for the group, though. Do you think our current makeup of the FBI is so different that what will be told about this shooter will be different than the shooter that did shoot President Trump? They cremated him within a couple days. They cleaned the site so no one could get any evidence at all. That we really don't know much about the shooter that shot President Trump. I'm hoping that does not happen here. I'm hoping that he doesn't commit suicide in jail or something like that.
Well, he's going to be under watch. He's definitely going to be under watch. And they're going to make sure that he doesn't.
Well, that's what Jeffrey Epstein was too. He was under watch.
Yeah, he was under watch. That's cool. Quite
if I could speak
disturbing
to that,
there.
Joe, Brian, I think your instincts are right on point. However, I'll say two things. It's not just that there's a new sheriff in town with Cash and Dan Bongino. It's that Cash and Dan Bongino were lied to this week by their underlings. They kept the information of the shooter from Dan and Cash for 18 hours. And let me tell you, I have it from an inside source. They are livid, absolutely livid. And thunder is raining down within FBI as we speak.
So they haven't cleaned it up enough yet. They still need to do some house cleaning.
Clean up an organization of what is it? How many thousands of people? I said, and I said this all through the Biden sham administration. I want every single person at FBI gone, right down to the guy that cleaned out the latrines, because you can't trust any of them. There are no good FBI agents. Allow people to apply and vet. But we need a complete house cleaning of every single person, at least that worked in the Hoover building.
I agree with you.
I would agree with that.
The other thing, too, is just piggybacking off of what Brian said. We know nothing about the Matthew Crooks, the shooter in Butler.
I don't even know if that's his name.
We know nothing about that, and it's still under lock and key. I think they're still working on it.
They didn't even have cutlery in the drawers in the kitchen. I mean, is Matthew Crooks his real name? Is he another CIA construct like Jeffrey Epstein was?
Yeah, there's so many questions that are unanswered with the Butler, PA shooting. And it seems like there's quite a few questions that are starting to lurk now with Charlie Kirk and what's going on there as well. I just hope that, we have that transparency and that we're able to really dig into all of this. But you can't bring him back, unfortunately. Even if you give the death penalty to this guy. Here, what's just so bizarre is, and I'm just going to leave it with this. We have another guest coming up here And Carol Coleman's going to be with us here in just a minute. But what I don't get, think about this a minute. Why is it that the trans community, and particularly this one individual, but there were a lot of others, when you start talking about trans being wrong, that it just ignites something in them that causes them to retaliate violently? We've seen a lot of mass shootings now from transgenders. This guy clearly, it just made him go crazy. And but why? There's so many different topics and things we talk about on a daily basis that can get you upset. But why is it with these people, when they hear that, a lot of them kind of go off the deep end? Let me just throw it to you, Timothy, because I know you gotta get running. But any thoughts on that at all or not?
Yeah, because we're fighting a spiritual battle. And even in fiction literature, how does a vampire react to a crucifix or to holy water? These people, if they're not outright demon possessed, they're definitely demon oppressed, because this whole transgender ideology is Satan's mockery of God's creation. Just like Satan wanted to make himself into God, he wants us to think that we can make ourselves into gods too. And, we are spiritual and physical beings united. When we die and our soul goes to heaven, hopefully, we're not going to be whole until the last day when our bodies are resurrected and once again we're whole. And that's why Satan hates us, because demons and angels are pure spiritual beings. We are both spiritual and physical beings. So if you degrade the body, if you say the body isn't the temple of the Holy Spirit, if you say the body can be whatever you in your consciousness decide you want it to be, well, then you've destroyed God's creation. I see this as completely satanic, and I'm not kidding. I'm being absolutely serious. I think these people are either demon obsessed, if not outright possessed.
Yeah,
100% agree, Tim.
It definitely seems that way. Yeah, go ahead, John.
A couple of thoughts. People can be propagandized, and there's a key element here that goes back to one of the threads of discussion we've had consistently over the last couple of years, and that is the whole subject of how to defeat America without firing a single shot. If you can create division and strife and create civil war environment within the United States, we're weak. And there's an expression for that. United we stand, divided we fall. We are being divided systematically. We have people who are very, very good at this. And you add current social media with the algorithms that create these echo chambers. Whatever your belief system is, you're likely to find that validated via the algorithm. So whatever rabbit hole you go in, it is designed, to divide people and separate them, and then pit them against each other. And when you add to that psychological conditioning that dehumanizes a group of people, you think of them as somehow subhuman, then you're willing to murder, kill, or give a free pass to people who do that. And that's where we are with these crazy lunatics who celebrated a public assassination. One other thing, you were asking about services today, and mine actually did. It was very focused on Charlie Kirk. And I suggest to our audience, we focus today on Acts 4. Go read Acts 4. It's spectacular. It was one of the best services I think I've ever been to. It was so timely. It was spectacular. And it did address exactly what's happening, and Charlie specifically. So Acts 4 is where I recommend people go. But as far as what happens next and where we go from here, I mean, just look at all of the I said it at the beginning of this show, we've got 18,000 new chapter requests after Erica spoke. And this whole "We Are Charlie." So I think what's supposed to happen is we're supposed to cower in fear, and we're supposed to not know what to do and divide and fracture. And the opposite's happening. You're seeing people come to the church, and a lot of young generation that really, Charlie Kirk resonated with them, who are embracing biblical principles And you can see it by those numbers. And then people are, they're not cowering in fear. They're posting all over social media and making T-shirts now that say, "We are Charlie." And to me, again, going back, I like history. I don't know if everybody knows this, but if you meet a Sikh who wears a very large turban on their head, that actually started after Muslim crusades, because the Sikhs were beheaded. And that big giant thing, that big wrap that the Sikhs wear on their head is basically you didn't get this head. We're seeing that in the movement following Charlie Kirk's assassination.
I got you. No, that's great.
And
that's
I think churches did miss a moment today, especially because today is Feast of the Veneration of the Cross. It's the day when we venerate the cross upon which Jesus redeemed us. So it's unfortunate that our priests didn't take that opportunity to make the link. But I'll leave you with this. As tragic as this is, never lose sight of Romans 8:28. The Lord works all things to good for those who are called according to his purpose. And Charlie, even though he wasn't yet Catholic, he was, by reports, considering rejoining Jesus's church. His wife is Catholic. His grandmother was Catholic. His parents were Catholic. Charlie hadn't yet joined the church, but I have no doubt that he is experiencing the beatific vision and right there amongst the martyrs in the church triumphant in heaven.
Well, you got it. Thanks, Timothy. Thank you very much for joining us here tonight.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shane.
With the Magnet Institute. Yeah, very good stuff. Yeah, he's in heaven right now. I have no doubt about that at all. No doubt at all. All right, I want to bring on our next guest. Carol Coleman, are you out there? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can hear her. Can we see Carol?
I can hear you, and I can see you. There you are.
There she is.
I'd recognize you anywhere, even though I've never seen you before. But how you doing?
I'm doing very well. How are you guys doing tonight?
Not bad. All right, let me just give
the show before you brought me on. It was so interesting, and I really loved everything that you guys were discussing and talking about. It was great.
Oh, thanks. Thank you. Well, we'll give you some applause for that. I don't have the applause, but I've got the confetti. So, Carol, you're out in Monroe County, and you have an interesting election integrity issue that we want to talk about here tonight. So let me just give a little background on what's happening in Monroe County, and we'll take it from there. Okay, so here's the background. August last month, it says residents in Monroe County, organized by Coalition of Concerned Voters of Ohio, the Coalition of Concerned Voters of Ohio, submitted a petition to the Monroe County Board of Elections placing a local ballot measure on the November ballot coming up this November. So you wanted to do that. The measure aimed to ban the use of electronic voting machines in the county and switch to hand-marked, hand-counted paper ballots. Think about that a minute, okay? Citing concerns over election security and accuracy. And I know you got a few stories about that accuracy. We'll get to that in just a minute. On August 11th, Frank LaRose, Ohio Secretary of State, issued a legal memo, an advisory memo against your group, saying that voting machines, they are not permitted to be repealed or banned once they are implemented, which I don't think makes any sense. I mean, once you put a voting machine somewhere, you can't ever get rid of it. The memo effectively deems such petitions as yours and your groups as invalid. August 21st, petition organizers filed challenges to the board's decision seeking to overturn the rejection and place the measure on the ballot again. So it sounds like you're going to try a second time. Secretary of State Frank LaRose continues to defend his advisory memo, saying that post-election audits show that he has 99.997% accuracy. And that's with the previous elections, and that banning machines could disrupt elections and increase errors. And he doesn't want to go below that 99.9997%. All right, let me bring you on here. So, and you're also running for state central committee. So we'll talk about that here in a minute. But let's talk about this election integrity. So what I just said there, was that pretty accurate?
Very accurate. Yes.
And so what is the group? What is the group at? Where are you guys at right now with all of this?
So right now, we actually just had a short meeting this evening to kind of discuss our next move forward, our next path forward. And we have a few options, and we are going to meet again just to really, we're going to do a little more research to find out how we can make those options, what is the best option, and how can we make it more, which option gives us the better ability to get this pushed forward. So we're kind of just in limbo right now.
Yeah, when I was looking at your voting machine, I was trying to find out what other counties have your voting machine, because you were saying that there were some inaccuracies that happened with them. But it's really hard to get this information as to what. Now, there's two machines. One is I think you have a screen that you press to vote.
Correct.
And maybe some of you other guys have something like that too, and some of your
we have that in Lake County. It's you've got one machine where you actually select your choice of candidate or issue, and it prints out a paper ballot, and that paper ballot is taken over to a tabulator, and the paper ballot is inserted, and the tabulator counts the vote.
Yeah, the tabulator scans the barcode, and because all of your selections are now turned into a barcode or a QR code, and that tabulator scans that and reads the information. So how do you know? Like, how do we honestly know what is in that barcode?
All right, let me ask you a question, because in Cuyahoga County, we do it a little bit differently. We do it the old-fashioned way. We just take a piece of paper, we color in the bubbles, but then we do put it into a scanner, okay, a tabulator. But you've got a step prior to the tabulator, which you do in a touch screen. So you vote for, the auditor, the Secretary of State. You vote for the president. You press a button as to who you're voting for, right? So when you get a printout, does the printout list that person's name that you can double check on, or what happens then?
So before you complete your transaction, you can review all of your selections, and you are able to go back. And once the paper, what they call considered to be a paper ballot, yes, it is. Those selections are printed out on that piece of paper along with the QR code. And the problem is, who reviews those? Most people at my precinct are grabbing their little sheet of paper and they're going over to the tabulator and scanning it. We have had a few people within our county tell us that they reviewed their printout, and once reviewed, they noticed the incorrect selections. So,
and this was prior to taking it to the tabulator. This was the printout, and they noticed that it didn't match what was on the screen, right?
That's correct. And probably about 92% of voters do not review that printed out piece of paper. Right. And so it's how many people have not caught it? That's the big question. The big burning question is, how many people do not look at it and have never caught that error?
And what's the process to correct it when you find it?
Well, we don't have a lot of good processes here in Monroe County. But if caught, then they call a poll worker over and they show them. So we were in a meeting. I was in a meeting of about 20 people. And this was after one of our elections. And we started having discussions, and 3 people were talking about their votes being flipped and how they had to get new ballots. So the process would be they would call somebody over, and then they would go back, they get another ballot and be able to re-enter their information. However, one of those gentlemen that were sitting in that meeting, this happened to him 3 times. And then another individual that it happened to 3 times and they could not get it corrected. They ended up having to drive to Woodsfield and vote a provisional ballot. Like, where does any of that even make sense?
Oh, that's terrible. So so the 99.999999 accuracy seems like it's being a question. Let me ask you a question, Brian, since you have something similar that what Carol is using.
Yeah, Carol, are you using ESS machines or are you using Dominion?
They're using ES and S. Well, as far as the tabulator.
Yeah, we're using ESS also in Lake County. And, I have to say that I've been a poll worker for many years, and we haven't experienced any problems. But I hear what Carol's saying about, QR codes. That always seems to be a bone of contention. What really is in those barcodes? I do know that Marcel Strivich, who is running for Secretary of State, he is all in favor of going back to all paper ballots.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you're trying to do, right, Carol? This is what your petition to put on the November ballot, which was denied apparently by Frank LaRose. He put out an advisory memo saying that you can't do it. I think you can. This is America. It's a free country. But in any event, but you guys had quite a few instances where the votes were not accurate, right?
Yes, we have. And one of the big problems with when there is an issue, our Board of Elections does not have a process in logging these. And then it's not just that, it's our director who is very opposed to the conservatives. She is extremely rude. So it's a lot of people, and we're a very small county. So anytime anybody goes in and they have to deal with her, a lot of people are like, I don't even want to go there. Like, she is the rudest person. And it's only if you're on this side. And so there are no processes in place to document any of these inaccuracies or things that are happening. So we can't track anything. Nothing has ever been tracked. We have one lady, which happens to be here with me. Her name's Sarah Aaron. She is on the Board of Elections. And every time she makes a motion, like maybe she'll make a motion to implement a tracking system, nobody will second the motion. And it just, there's never any action. No, it's a constant battle to try to get anything implemented that would safeguard our voters in the process.
Okay. Now, let me ask you a question. So you have another person in the room?
I do. My friend Sarah, and again, she is on the Monroe County Board of Elections, and so she is here with me.
Okay, so this she want to shed a little light on this? We'd be glad to hear anything, Because I don't know what's going on. I know that much. But does she want to share or just listen?
Sure. Sure, she will share.
Okay.
She's looking to what she can say because there's a big target on her back. So she is very limited to things that she can comment on, but she is also very able to comment. So Sarah?
Sure. Hi. Okay, great. So the Board of Elections, my biggest concern ever since I've been on there is just the way that we spend taxpayer dollars. I'm pretty frugal, and there's it seems like once you work for the government, you don't have to be, and you don't have to answer for how you spend money and stuff like that. And so one of the biggest issues, aside from the vote flipping that we've seen, is the cost of this. Our county is very small. We were $1 million in the red at the end of 2024. And after some records requests, we found that we've paid more than $700,000 to ES&S since 2019. And we have a voting base. We have fewer than 10,000 registered voters. The last election, we had 826 voters show up. And so the idea
is that for, excuse me, is that for the whole county?
Yep, that's for the whole county.
Wow, that is a small county. 826 voters. Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes. Yeah. And so just the idea that hand counting wouldn't work for us is a little preposterous. So
how long would it take? Yeah, realistically, how long would it take to count 826 ballots? I don't think it would take that long.
We do it at the same precinct. Our precincts are so small. Here's another fun fact. We used to have 28 precincts, polling places in the county. We've got an aging population here. The number of polling places have been reduced by 70%. That's great. Now we've got grandma driving a half an hour on crazy gravel roads. Hope she's got a chainsaw in her car because trees randomly fall down across the road all the time. It's a good time. And so it just the way that we spend money, the way that the voters are being dismissed and disenfranchised, it's unfortunate. And so I'm not really making friends, but I'm asking a lot of hard questions and they don't like to hear it. When I ask about election day performance, for example, if you bought a $700,000 racehorse and you wrote that check yourself, would you have your stopwatch out on race day or would you just not care? And so when I'm asking about machine performance, why aren't we tracking how every machine is doing any incidences? Because it all is an opportunity to inform us on something. Do we need to educate our voters more? Do we need to train our election workers more? Do we need to consider a different type of machine? Whatever. There's no interest whatsoever. And if I make a motion for something like that, we stare into space and pretend that we don't hear me. It's great. And just very irresponsible. We have, at the May election, there was a machine that we needed to replace. And so we swapped it out early on in the day. Well, when you're looking at numbers, that machine, we're going to have one more election this year. That machine will have worked 50% of the time this year. What anything is acceptable? A 50% failure rate?
Yeah, 50% is, especially when it comes... especially when it comes to elections, 50% ain't going to cut it. Okay,
anything, but anybody responsible.
Are you allowed to, after everything's been tallied, are you allowed to just count them for the heck of it to see if it all added up correct? Are you allowed to do that?
Actually, before I was on the Board of Elections, in the fall of last year, we did a citizens initiative, not on an official form, just had people sign up, and we had 286 signatures from
with
people.
80 volunteers.
Yeah, with 80 volunteers, the people that were willing to help count. And we said that when you do the audit, it's a 5% audit, which actually isn't 5%, but I'll tell you that in a sec. That we wanted to count all of those. We wanted to count all the ballots, and these 80 people volunteer because we knew that if we said we just want y'all to count them, they would say no, we can't. We're understaffed. It's too much money, whatever. And so we were going to do that. They ignored the request. We asked them a couple of times with different deadlines, continued to ignore us. And finally, the election passed and it was, it just kind of went away. So there's just this history of blatant disrespect for the voters. And even though we say it's in the minutes that the chair works for the voters, the actions would suggest otherwise. Mm-hmm. The whole 5% thing, you pull 5% of the ballots, but you only count 3 races. So if you've got a ballot with 20 races, you're not counting 5% of the ballots. You're counting a fraction of 5%. So that's a little bit deceptive.
And that's where that 99.999% comes in. He's only auditing 5% at the most. At the most, 5% auditing,
not.
and just
Who's
taking
got 3
a few.
races?
Yeah, taking a few of the races. So if there's any hanky-panky going on, you're not going to catch it.
Not going to catch it.
Yeah,
exactly.
It wouldn't be caught. Let me throw Jonathan in. Jonathan, do you have a question for the two ladies here?
Well, first of all, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on and joining us. Carol, you and I have spoken on the phone, and I appreciate all that you're doing. I have many comments and questions, and boy, I wish we had a full dedicated show. I'll try to run through this fairly quickly, and hopefully that all this makes sense to all of our guests. One thing, you're talking about the, whatever it is you keep saying, and Joe, I wish you'd stop saying 99.99, whatever. It's complete smoke and mirrors hogwash. We know from Citizens Audit that Ohio has something around 12.5 million bad or questionable entries on voter rolls. So this whole notion that Ohio is this gold standard is just ludicrous on its face. We know that there are unanswered questions. When Frank LaRose came out at some point, I don't know, a year-ish ago, and talked about how he was going to clean up something like 713 bad entries in their voter rolls. Well, I quickly did the math on that and alerted everybody that at that pace, we'll clean up the issues on Ohio's voter rolls in about 7,000 years, if nothing else bad is entered in. So it's just, the whole thing is ludicrous. If you do actually want gold standard elections, take a look at Laura Shar. She was actually a guest on my podcast. Laura Shar is with Gold Standard Elections. You'll find them on social media. They have a website. Gold Standard Elections, when you're asking questions like how long would it take and about what is the cost for hand counting, going back to an actual auditable, recognizable, clear, transparent election in Monroe County, go to Gold Standard Elections and they've got all the data. You can watch videos of how they do it step by step, and it is unbelievably a thing of beauty. So my expectation, based on what I've learned, is that Monroe County and all others like them would be afforded massive, faster elections, clearer elections, more transparent, at an astronomical, monumental savings to taxpayers. So all of that stuff goes together. There's one other piece on websites, and that is go to handcountroadshow.org. So Mark Cook has gotten to be kind of a friend, great guy. He actually came as my guest and spoke in Lake County here about a year ago. But Mark Cook, go to Hand Count Roadshow, and I'm going to direct you to a video. And this, I'm speaking to my audience. I'm sure that you two lovely ladies already know this information, but there's a great video. What if I told you, my listening audience that probably wants hand count and paper ballots and things that you feel are actually have integrity, not the smoke and mirrors hogwash from politicians in Columbus telling you, don't look, don't worry, the black box is telling you the right answer. There's a video of an array of politicians, a vast list of politicians, all captured on video, saying that our elections are not secure, that these electronic voting systems are not secure. Let me tell you a couple of the names on this video. Hillary Clinton, Adam Schiff, Sheila Jackson Lee, Val Demings, Jennifer Wexton, Ron Wyden, Ted Lieu, Amy Klobuchar. It goes on. Kamala Harris. They're all caught on video in a montage that you'll find on Mark Cook's website. Show people that. And so I'm assuming that this guy you're talking about, whoever heads the Board of Elections there locally, is opposed to the citizens because maybe he's far left, I'm guessing. I don't know who it is. I don't even know his name. But if that is a far left person, take a video like that, I suggest, in places like Monroe County and say, why aren't you listening to all of these people and list them? And then take out a billboard and make a sandwich sign outside of the Board of Elections. Did you know the board president is choosing to ignore Dan Coates, Zoe Lofgren, Matt Blaze, Philip Stark, Andrew Appel? If you don't know those names, those are far left politicians. And they're all on video saying our electronic voting systems are a mess. Don't trust them. Do not trust them. That video is it's a death knell to the far left who want to tell us, what? There's nothing to see here. The election systems are all fine and good and great. One other thing that I wrote down, you're talking about the experiences that people have in your county. Take a playbook, take a page from the playbook of the left and go in with 2 people all the time, or if you have to be one person alone, take your mobile phone and put the video on capture and just have it in your pocket. Or better yet, get some surveillance. You can get a little camera, capture that stuff, capture the audio and video of people being horrendous in these government jobs. The last piece, putting it all together, because what do we do with that? What do we do with that information when we, the people, have it? And here's what we do with it. Think Charlie Cook. What we've seen over the last 3 days is nothing short of revealing of why our enemies go to such lengths to divide us. They do it because we are powerful. Look at what's happening with the counter cancel. I mean, we've had 5 years of people. I'm outraged. The amount of cancellation I've faced, and many people like me. I actually did a whole series called Weaponized Regulators, but that's a side note. Those of us who have experienced cancel culture, because we did things like ask questions about the COVID jab, whatever, fill in the blank, we were canceled. Mm-hmm. Now the flip is scripted. The script has flipped, and we have a clear, justifiable answer to that. And we are loud right now. We're outraged by the people celebrating a public execution. It is outrageous, but that gives us a show of the power that we have. There's a huge spreadsheet that's being published on X right now showing all the people that have been fired from their jobs because they are outrageous, sinister, vile human beings. I'm not suggesting that your president is a sinister, vile human being. I don't even know who it is, or your board chair or whatever. But I am saying that if what you're describing is true, and you have an outraged citizen group, you have a majority in Monroe County who want to get rid of that person, get organized, get loud, get vocal, and you can do it. You can have anything you want. One last thing, and this is just a tip of the hat. This is a nod on my part to Monroe County. Those of you who watch this program know that I've created a series of resolutions for Republican Party Central Committee. One of them, focusing on the Russian collusion hoax, is now being reviewed and considered by over 100 counties all across the country, from coast to coast. And the second after my county, I pitched it, I got it passed in my county, encouraging the investigation and prosecution of those involved in the alleged Russian collusion hoax. You probably know all about that by now, but I want to give a tip of the hat because Monroe County was the second county in the country to pass that resolution. So it's not all bad in Monroe County, but it sounds like you've got your work cut out for you.
Well, maybe with the election they're having a little bit of a problem, but I do want to thank both of you women for stepping forward the way
Joe,
you are.
Before you go, can I ask Carol a question?
Ahead. Sure.
Yeah, Carol, I'm assuming that because of our Secretary of State LaRose, he's made the pronouncement that we should all be using machines, whether they're Dominion or ESS. So there are no counties in Ohio that do paper ballots. But if we had a different Secretary of State, and can he make the pronouncement that if you want to go with paper ballots, each individual county can vote for paper ballots? Therefore, there's better local control of the elections. So I'm asking a question. Is that possible if we had a different Secretary of State, the individual county could select to go with paper ballots?
So I am so thankful that you asked that question because yes, absolutely. And Marcel Sturbridge has been extremely outspoken on this issue. And I don't know if you're aware as to what has happened in Seneca County, but Seneca County's Board of Elections made a motion after this effort because they did the same thing that Monroe did. They made a motion to no longer allow anyone work as a poll manager that has
didn't support the machines.
Yes, that was in support of getting rid of the machines, that are opposed to the machines. And so Marcel Sturbridge has been extremely outspoken. What kills me is Frank LaRose. We've asked him 10 million times for an explanation. Nothing. I have asked, several others have asked. Robert Sprague, speak up on this. Tell us what your stance is. Where do you stand on what has happened in Monroe and Seneca County? Nothing. Not one single word. Vivek finally came out, and there's an article in the Western Journal, and I understand that USA Today just actually picked up that article as well, and stated, this is against people's First Amendment rights. You cannot, this is absolute government overreach, and they cannot do this. So Marcel Sturbridge has been a champion for both Monroe and Seneca County, and he is willing to jump both feet in and help the entire state. I believe if we elect Marcel Sturbridge, we will honestly set the gold standard across this nation for election integrity.
I agree with you. I mean, he's got a lot of experience. He's not just talking. He's got a lot of cybersecurity experience in the military.
He does.
And he knows what he's talking about. Yeah, he's very knowledgeable. So that's a good thing.
Joe, well, I was in Sandusky County this past week, and we had some people that were in Seneca County, and they did mention exactly what Carol had mentioned, that poll workers were being punished if they did not toe the line, and I found that reprehensible, and I agree with Carol that should not stand.
No, and that is so anti-American, especially when it comes to voting, that if you're going to speak out or something like that, you're going to be punished. Plus, you have evidence that the votes are being flipped. So you would think that Secretary of State would be there and check it out, check out the machines, do the testing and all that due diligence. Doesn't sound like they're interested in doing that. Let me just two real quick questions, because I got another guest coming. One is, what is happening next? Is there anything happening next as far as this situation?
So as of right now, again, working with CCVO, trying to figure out our next path forward and what's the best solution for us to be able to move forward and try to get something done. So we're just kind of in limbo, just with a lot of conversations involving a lot of different people, seeking legal advice, trying to determine what the next path forward is.
And Carol, I would just want to end with this. You're going to be running for State Central Committee, you said. Is that correct?
I am. Yes, absolutely. I am. I think like the people of my county have truly inspired me. The group that I work with Monroe County Republican Party, they are all absolutely amazing. We are definitely a dedicated work group, and I feel like, the grassroots movement is very strong, and I think just being a part of the State Central Committee, it's just time that people step up and do something and say something and be a part of that movement to where we can make good, positive change. So, yep, I'm running.
Well, congratulations. Best of luck with everything. Both of you ladies, thank you. Hey, any new updates or anything like that, just now that we know each other, you can just text me. And if you have any updates or anything, please let me know, and we'll follow up and get you on again, and we'll talk about it, okay? But
that sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah, best of luck.
All right, thank you so much.
Thanks for being an activist. We appreciate that.
Thanks, ladies.
You got to be this day and age. Thank you, guys.
We've got this character coming on next. How you doing? I told you to stand in the corner, but you didn't have to take me literally. Okay, now turn around. That's I'm remembering days from when I was in elementary school. There wasn't a corner I didn't have my nose in, but anyhow.
It's a nice background. I gotta get the flag or something going, huh?
All right. So how's it going I didn't have the lower thirds for you, but it's Jeff Skinner. Jeff, you have this. This is called the Ohio Register. So people can go to this website. Got a lot of great news. www.theohioregister.com, and you got a lot of good articles here. We're gonna talk about this one in Springfield, Ohio, here in just a second. But I also want to real quick, because first of all, let's just talk about the Ohio Register for a minute. Just tell us what that is specifically, okay? What's the Ohio Register?
We started as the Ohio Roundtable a couple of years back. We've changed it now to the Ohio Register. The goal is to promote and foster citizen journalism in Ohio. So, things that go on in people's backyards don't always get the attention that media should be giving it. And that's why we believe in citizen journalism as a solution there. So it's sort of a hyper-local outlet that covers, local city, municipal, township issues, but also statewide issues, things that affect Ohio as a whole. So we're hoping to, foster growth with people who are wanting to have a platform to discuss issues that are happening in their hometown that no one's really focused on. There, if you log on and you want to either be a subscriber, read our content, or even be a contributor and a citizen journalist yourself, we will foster that. We'll help train you. We'll help you learn AP-style writing and get you in the groove so that you can start being a local reporter in your hometown.
Oh, that's awesome. That is awesome. All right, well, a quick question before we get to the Haitians and what they're up to in Springfield. Just real quick and brief. You're not real convinced that we've gotten all the information with the Charlie Kirk assassination, right?
I would say that there are some questions that I have. And, I'm still sort of looking into a lot of this, working on a piece of it, myself, trying to sift through early information to where we're at today. There are, in my opinion, some, we'll say, anomalies is how I would probably phrase them. Things that I feel do deserve further investigation surrounding the event. Yeah.
Okay. And you would say the same thing about the Butler assassination attempt with President Trump. And I think we all would agree with that one. That there's a lot more that needs to be uncovered there. A lot more.
Absolutely. So, and I'll dive in and, just bear in mind for any viewers, I'm going to be talking about, when we talk about this, we're talking about something very visceral, something very recent, very fresh, but also, not for the faint of heart. So, I say that just as a fair warning. When you mentioned Butler, I would say the first thing that came to my mind when this event happened was the distance of the shooters. I mean, with the Butler event, we have one set of inconsistencies, and I'll get back to the distance of the shooter as well. But with the Butler event, you had multiple eyewitnesses, seeing this assailant climbing or trying to gain access to rooftops, reporting it to authorities essentially doing nothing with that information. Secret Service did not do adequate sweeps of the area and vantage points. And, the shooter was able to fire multiple rounds at the president, striking the president with one, and then, several other individuals and attendees with the other rounds. With this event, it was a bit different in that the shooters were equidistant, I'll say, from the target, from what I could see. I watched the video several times, and it's very heart-wrenching. It's very gut-wrenching. It's hard to watch, but what you notice when you are watching is you can glean information from it. One is that Charlie Kirk was assassinated with what I could tell very early was probably 7.62 caliber round from a 30-06 rifle, both based on the entrance and exit wound. It was not an AR-15. AR-15s cause, a different size size wound. So that was probably the first thing, which also tells me that based on the distance that the shooter had to be, they were some ground away. Some people were saying about 200 meters. We found out that it was about 400 feet from the vantage point on the rooftop of, I believe it was the attendance building, the main office where he was firing from on Utah's campus there. And the thing that I immediately sort of latched onto with that is that in both instances, from Butler and from Utah, both shooters were about 400 plus feet away from the target. What you found with Butler is that you had a sort of panic situation with the shooter. And this is something that you find with people who are inexperienced with guns and with the event that they're about to engage in with violence. From that distance, anything down rifle through your scope, a slight movement, a slight change or shift in wind or a twist of the neck or head can actually bring your target out of range and out of sight. So you really have to account for that in this scenario. And in the case of Butler, what you find is that the shooter fired one shot and then several other successive rounds. And that's because after the first shot, there's panic. People move and shift, and the shooter, the adrenaline rush causes that situation for that to happen. With the Utah situation with Charlie Kirk, that did not occur. The shooter fired exactly one round. It was a kill shot to Charlie Kirk, and that was it. There were no successive panic fires, pulls of the trigger. And there was additional things that happened around the event that I think were, we'll say, the anomalies. The first and foremost is after that shot was fired in Utah, a man named George Zinn was initially arrested. Now, he was arrested, allegedly, from what I've heard, with a fake gun, and he was telling officers that he did it and that they should shoot him. He was screaming that in the video when he was being arrested, "Shoot me, shoot me." We could write that off, I think, in this instance, if it was some local insane person or someone seeking attention. But in the instance with Zinn, what I find troubling is that this isn't the first time or the first catastrophic event that he's been connected to. He was arrested connected to the Boston Marathon bombing, calling in bomb threats related to that. In addition to that, he claims that he was also present during 9/11. So we've got two other large-scale events in which this individual seems to be popping up, essentially interfering with police action that might have allowed a quicker response to locate and find the shooter.
That's a really good point, though. Let me just say that I agree with you. That's a very good point, because it could be used as a decoy. If he's occupying, they arrested him, so they were suspicious of this guy. So if he's doing that on purpose, that's giving the shooter the opportunity to escape. Let me ask you this question, and you have some great insight, but what about the shooter that has been apprehended? Are we 100% sure that he actually committed the crime?
Well, again, there's inconsistencies with that as well. So, there are, first, what we saw was pictures or images of what the FBI claimed was the rifle used in the shooting. And they say they find this rifle in the woods. That's where we get the inscriptions on it. Now, I will say that some things that I found quite alarming in terms of questioning, we'll say, the ATF or FBI's understanding of things is that they were looking at etchings on the rounds that have arrow markings on them and saying that they believe that that was from, the shooter and his sort of manifesto or credo as to why he did it. Those arrow markings are actually pretty standard for what we call 7.6 or 30.6 rounds. And, that's leading to the lack of understanding or expertise for the federal authorities to understand what they're actually looking at there. But in addition to that is, the pictures that they released later, we saw an individual in sunglasses, ball cap, a shirt with an American flag. You look at that, you think, okay, was this an individual maybe trying to blend in, with the general, area. But that outfit actually contradicts the 9/11 dispatch, 911 dispatch audio. So dispatch audio communicating with law enforcement response team said that eyewitnesses saw an individual in a black vest with a black mask on. So, we haven't heard whether this attire was worn and maybe taken off. It hasn't been recovered. It's just sort of dropped at that point. Addition to that is the video we did see of him descending the rooftop, and it looks as if he could have been carrying some sort of a small bag or a shirt with him. It was not large enough to be, a 30-06 bolt action rifle. So the argument that the FBI said is, well, he disassembled the rifle to descend the roof, but then allegedly reassembled the rifle to toss it into the woods so that the FBI could get their photo. That screams to me like a major inconsistency. I don't, logically, it doesn't make sense to me why someone would do that.
Oh, okay. I know. I got you. Yeah. Well, the onion is being unpeeled, and, there's a layer after layer after layer. We'll have to find out. I trust the FBI this go around. I didn't trust Ray and Comey and everybody else. I do trust Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and their groups. I feel more confident we're going to get the truth here. But there are a lot of questions that you're bringing up. What I want to do here is I want to talk about an article that you wrote. And let me just pull that up here for you real quick. I had it, and then I didn't have it. But it's on Springfield. It's on Springfield, and of course, you grew up in Springfield.
I did.
Yeah, you grew up in Springfield. How old were you when you left Springfield?
That's a great question. I've come and gone a few different times.
Okay.
as many in my generation probably have or will, But I think my final formal departure was probably late 20s, early 30s. That was about the time where I was like, all right, I'm done now.
You're
time to
okay.
leave.
Time to leave. Here's the article that you wrote about Springfield. Citizen action forces police shutdown of Haitian Samaldi. How do you say that? Samaldi? Samedi rave. Okay, yeah. Ohio Register. And I encourage people to go to the Ohio Register by Jeff Skinner. Okay, so we get... I kind of pre-read it, so fill in the gaps and all that. Let's talk about it. But there's some hanky-panky going on in Springfield with the Haitians, and it sounds like, well, number one, they don't want to adapt to our culture. Number two, they're renting out these convenience stores, or not renting them out. I guess someone is giving them like a old convenience stores, and you can help me out here. But they're having these Saturday night parties, right? They're getting other Haitians and they're just having a good old time. Alcohol, the works. There's no liquor license. So fill me in on this because it's kind of a fascinating story. And it's a little funny too. It's kind of funny.
Definitely a change of tone. But yes, that's in short what's happening. So we have what is essentially a market is what they call it, a corner store type market, which you do find in certain like larger urban areas, like a city like Wilmington, Delaware. You find a lot of them on street corners. It's where you go, you can buy chips, food, that sort of stuff. That's what essentially they're licensed or coded for. And that is not what they're being used for. So these local businesses, the ones actually managing the stores, in short, are not the ones that own the property. The property are owned by other individuals in Cincinnati or Columbus or larger metropolitan areas. But they're renting the store space out, and they're not actually using it as markets. Many residents are saying that they've tried to gain access to these areas under the auspices of their official usage and finding empty store shelves inside, but there is something going on in the back rooms. And it turns out that what might be going on is they're running nightclubs out of these areas on Saturday nights. And one such event was shut down last weekend. So the residents of Springfield had sort of been tracking this. Locally, they've been driving by. They see a lot of cars going on. They see these flyers being circulated online. and individuals had even gotten videos outside the establishments on Saturday nights where you can see that they have security operating, keeping people out, preventing entrance. They're charging ticket prices at the door, $20, $50 VIP.
These Haitians are having too good of a time, having way too good of a time. This is the poster here for one of them. This was at Z Spot Lounge. Haitians only, right? So if you're not a Haitian, they won't even let you in. $20 to $50 to get in. I thought all the Haitians were poor and starving to death, but apparently not, huh?
Well, that is the argument, right? If you look at actual official news outlets, whether that's the Springfield News Sun or Dayton Daily News, what you're going to find is these articles where they're saying that all these, Haitian population are, like you're saying, destitute, hungry, concerned about what's going to happen to them. And then you actually see something like this, which harkens back to the era of speakeasies, during the Prohibition era, where the mob would operate backroom lounges selling alcohol, outside the confines of rule of law. And that's essentially what they're doing. They do not have liquor licenses for these establishments, and they're selling $200 bottle service.
All right, we got to get to the bottom. We got to get to the bottom of this. No pun intended, Brian. What, you ever hear of such dastardly deeds? So these guys are having a big party in these rooms, the Haitians.
So I guess the eating of the cats, that's old news. They're not doing that anymore, obviously. Hello, Jeff. Nice job on the Ohio Register, by the way. Very nice.
Hi, Brian. Thank
you. Is this the group that Governor DeWine brought in from Haiti? Or is this...
his school down there. I think it's since been shut down. But Haiti, for a very long time, has been a location in which politicians and we'll say nonprofit organizations have gone to either, in my opinion, transfer funds around in interesting ways. I mean, the Clinton Foundation is very famous for taking in large amounts of funding and donations to build houses, and they maybe accomplished one or two over several years and pocketed the rest of the cash and salaries. And I think a lot of institutions follow the same framework.
Here's the storefront. This is the storefront of one of them. So there's really nothing going on during the day. It's kind of closed, but at night, especially on a Saturday night, this thing comes alive. And you got to be a Haitian, though, to get in. Jonathan, you ever hear of anything like this before? This probably doesn't happen in Chesterton. Where are you at? Geauga County. Probably doesn't happen in Geauga County.
I'm not aware of any such thing. If it's happening, it's at least so far off radar for me. A couple of comments I made, a couple of notes. Just a fun sort of a note. The first thing is for anybody in the Cleveland area, you probably know the name Bob France. Bob is a conservative radio talk show host. And during last week's show, he actually texted me asking about the Ohio Register. And I'm actually texting with him now to make sure that he knows to get connected with Jeff. So it's kind of cool. After 1 week, we're kind of connecting the circle. Jeff, welcome. Thank you for joining us on the program. One point of clarification, because I imagine it's probably actually two. One having to do with me and one having to do with Jeff's comments. We do have some observant viewers of this program, and while 30-06 and 7.62 are the same caliber, they're actually chambered differently, so they're not interchangeable. My guess, knowing about the hunting side, is that it's much more likely to be a 30-06 that's behind that. And my clarification, I made myself a note from last week. I misspoke. So, Joe, I'm going to interject this. Last week, I actually referenced a number in the Ohio, our rainy day fund in Ohio. It's actually $4 billion. So thank you for bringing that to my attention. Coming back to the topic at hand, I have a lot of questions about what's really going on in Springfield. I remember when the whole they're eating cats, they're eating dogs, and all that stuff was coming up, and we learned to tie back to DeWine and the Clinton Foundation and all that stuff, people were asking about how they were getting there and why. And I want to say it was the town manager, I forget his exact title, was found to be renting properties and profiting personally from bringing in all these people. He had rental properties all over the place. What's the dynamic there? Has that changed since Trump has taken office and there's work to try and repeal that recurring allowance for continued visas for people from Haiti? Where does all of that stand?
Well, it's a good question. To answer your first question, Rob Rue is the individual that I've actually identified as he has property rentals that are or have been currently rented to Haitians. So, he is profiting directly from that, and he has been one of the most adamant supporters of the Haitian immigration into the area. And to your second question as to where they stand as far as the revocation of their temporary protective status, it's a good question. The city of Springfield has been essentially outwardly stating that they will do whatever they can to protect the new neighbors, as they refer to them, which I understand why. A lot of local businesses, including McGregor Steel, depend on this massive influx of cheap labor through the TPS program. So I get it. I understand it. It's integral to their infrastructure, but it's not beneficial to the residents. We've seen a rise in property pricing, basically pricing out individuals who are native to the city and have been made homeless by this increased demand. So you also have a loss of jobs. As we have seen with the Welcome Initiative plan, and you can read this on the Ohio Register. We've covered it a couple of different times on how this all came about in Springfield, the massive influx. But in short, the Welcome Initiative is sort of at the center, the fulcrum of it. And they have orchestrated or organized a plan in which jobs are directly pipelined to Haitians in Haiti using staffing agencies. One of the most prominent, of course, that got notoriety was First Diversity Staffing. So they'll use this TPS program and the staffing agencies to essentially bypass, heritage Americans, heritage Springfielders for jobs and opportunities and pipeline them to Haiti and bring them over under this contract basis.
So the TPS, that's temporary protective status, okay, for the Haitians. But Trump's getting rid of all that, right? Isn't he? They're no longer protected status, correct?
So we've been told, I've heard a couple of different things back and forth. I believe the official date for the revocation of that is in February of 2026, which is fairly close to when Biden was going to let that expire anyways. The hope was that was going to be revoked a lot sooner this year, in August, and that does not appear to be the case. So we will see what happens as we get closer to February. It seems each successive month or each time we get close to that drawback, another federal judge somewhere in New York or California or something like that steps in and says, no, you can't do this. This is unconstitutional. And then it's back to square one in another court debate.
Oh, okay. So they still might be getting some federal aid, is what you're saying.
Almost all of their funding comes from some sort of either federal program or nonprofit that is taking federal donations and programs.
It's so bizarre. Of all the places, Springfield, you got this, 15,000 Haitians or something in the city? It's amazing.
Yeah, the number isn't even really quantified. I mean, they've said anything from 12,000, 15,000. Unofficial metrics say 20,000, and this is a city of 58,000 residents. So you're talking almost, 30-40% of the population, just mass influx in there with no tracking, no database management, no emergency services support. It's been a complete disaster for the city. I will say that the city of Springfield has gone on record not to tie it to the Haitian influx, but to state it in terms of income tax revenue. They're not taking any income tax in. So something is going wrong there. They said that this was going to be a huge boon for the city. They're now financially destitute. They're talking about cutting services and funding for programs, everything except emergency services, because they have no money.
Well, if they're not getting any income from the taxes or whatever, I would say that they're not working. So they're just getting free money from the government, and that's how they're surviving. Brian, any last thoughts on this? And I like that shirt, by the way. I like that shirt a lot. I don't know if you
Oh,
want to
thanks.
stand
That's Kent's handiwork. Yeah, it just seems like the citizens continue to get abused. Where we're doing something great for poor people in Haiti. We're bringing them in, but it sounds like we've got them at slave labor in some organization. They're not contributing income taxes for the people. So now the people in Haiti or in Springfield are supporting or helping the people from Haiti, but they're being adversely affected. Is there any politician that is worried about the citizens in the state of Ohio? It drives me crazy that they're helping others to the detriment of Ohio citizens. It doesn't seem right to me.
Yeah. Any politicians stepping forward, or they're all kind of mum on this?
That's a good question. I've spoken with people that I felt were strong candidates that didn't win office, that had opinions on it and felt like they would have been the people to stand up for, heritage Americans in this situation. But I don't know of anybody currently that I would say related or close to this issue that I know of that really is standing up for the residents of Springfield.
Yeah, that's too bad. Jonathan, I'm going to let you have the last word tonight, okay? So we'll probably wrap it up, but go ahead.
Well, I don't have any more questions on Springfield. Jeff, thanks again for coming back on and bringing us up to speed on all of that stuff, and for all the work that you do at the Ohio Register. Remember, people, go visit the Ohio Register and sign up, get your news from there. This is the grassroots. This is how we get real news. I will, however, say, there it is. There's the website. I will say that in the Rumble chat, somebody asked the question of whether or not the Monroe County Board of Elections, that's our previous guest, whether or not their Board of Elections has recorded, or if they record and maybe make their Board of Elections meetings public on a platform like YouTube. I do have an answer here from Carol Coleman for the people that asked that question, and anybody else who might be wondering. Unfortunately, they do not, and until recently, minutes were very sketchy. But it seems like something they're working on. They're trying to get better minutes and maybe even recordings. And if Joe, if you'll humor me for one more second here,
but that's the key. That's the key for them, I think, is start videotaping meetings.
Yep.
That is the
video.
key.
Video wins the day. You at least audio. Capture these meetings, for heaven's sakes. Get out there and see, there we go. Have your video recorded your meetings in the elections board. So that's the question I believe I've just answered. I got a text message back from Carol. But there is an event coming up on September 28th for anybody in the Geauga area, growing the grassroots in our party. And this, to me, it's actually a little painful to have to describe it this way, because the Republican Party is by its very nature supposed to be grassroots. This concept that we've gotten into, this grassroots is somehow separate or different or distinct from the Republican Party. For heaven's sakes, people, we have a Republican Party. We are supposed to lead it. And this is a meeting to help people to understand how that is supposed to work, what's broken, and how we fix it. There's going to be some talk of precinct strategy. I'm a huge advocate of that. And a guest speaker, Faith Andrews, is going to be there from Lake County. Faith Andrews, I'm tongue-tied tonight. Faith Andrews, the Truth Badger, is going to be our guest in Geauga County for this growing grassroots in our party. In order to find out more, visit fortifygeauga.org. fortifygeauga.org. fortifygeauga.org, and that's on September 28th from 1 to 3 p.m. We need more people to step up, for heaven's sakes, and do things like becoming a citizen journalist, writing articles and getting them onto the Ohio Register and getting involved at the local level. This is the type of party on the 28th that's going to teach you for that. Whatever it is you're doing out there, folks, get at it. We've got a country to save. I am personally, as I said earlier, one segment ago, I am very inspired by what we're seeing, the organization and the clout, the power that we are exerting, flexing our muscle with those just gross people who celebrated the murder of Charlie Kirk. We've gone after them and we've shown that we can cancel them. Now let's apply that muscle. Let's apply ourselves to things like precinct strategy and becoming citizen journalists, running for school board, and all sorts of things like it. Let's get out there and let's get after it, folks.
Absolutely.
Hey, Joe,
Jeff,
can I get one more minute, please?
go ahead.
Yeah, Joe, I want to let everybody know next Saturday we'll have the Columbus rally. I'll be representing Ohio Political News down there from the media standpoint, and we are going to be pushing the abolishing the property taxes, and we'll do it with a huge rally down in Columbus. I want to give a shout out to Representative Tex Fisher and Representative from the Ashtabula area, David Thomas. Those young men, give me hope, for the future. And that's the type of, let's say, fresh blood that we need in this Republican Party. The same thing with Senator Al Catrone from the Mahoning area. And I appreciate this past week being able to talk to patriots in Sandusky, Seneca, Galena, and also Mahoning County. So it was a big week, and we're going to keep moving forward for the citizens of the state of Ohio.
All right. We got to get the signatures. Jeff, hey, thanks again. Ohio Register, if people want to become a reporter for you, how do they do it?
Well, send me an email. Email is on the website in the contact us section. And, we'll go from there. We'll talk on the phone. I'll train you on how to write an AP style article and get rolling.
Awesome. Well, there it is again. Well, I want to thank you, and everybody tonight. Great show, guys. Thanks you. And we'll
thanks,
talk
everyone.
to everybody.
Good night.
Yeah, talk to everybody.
Thanks,
soon.
Joe. Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye.